Nobody told me that in my 50s, we would hit this universal health issue that no one talks about, that there's very little treatment out there. There's very little research. My first symptom was brain fog. And I found that scary because it really hit right at my core. It really impacted my confidence for a period. And I didn't trust what was coming out of my mouth sometimes. The average disability claimant is a 52-year-old female. And that has been like that since disability insurance existed.
Welcome to the Old Chicks No Shit podcast for midlife women who are ready to rewrite the rules and create their kick-ass next chapter. I'm Jennifer Arthurton, and each episode we dive into reinvention, resilience, and unapologetic pursuit of your best chapter yet. Because midlife is not the beginning of the end, it's simply a new beginning. Let's dive in. Today we are chatting with Fiona Lake Waslander, who is the founder and CEO of Coral, which is a digital health platform designed specifically for menopausal women. We're going to be diving into Fiona's own personal menopause story and what caused her to start to shift her career, really, to start focusing on how to better support midlife women through this transition. Now, I wanted to share Fiona's story with you because this really is a story about leadership through menopause and how, it can impact our lives, what we can do about it, and how we become better and stronger leaders as we enter this menopausal chapter of life. So welcome, Fiona. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your menopause journey and what caused you to make a career shift into helping to support women in this space.
Yeah, I feel like it's a long journey getting here. I'll spare you the details, but I'll start in my 40s. So I actually left the corporate world. I was just turning 40 and sort of left the security of the benefits program and all these sort of things to go out on my own. I'd been moving earlier and earlier stage in the types of business I was working on anyway, and really wanted to, start something new. So I actually partnered with an old co-founder. We did the whole venture capital process, multiple rounds of funding, grew the company. It was an amazing ride, ended up selling it, and was working at the acquirer for a period of time, the one that bought our company. And during that time, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I was very interested in early stage and starting something again. It was just at this point. So I was in my, say, mid to late 40s, and I have an older sister. She's about 5 years older. And we have had the same health journey with respect to, reproduction. For example, we were both late, we both had our periods late when we were 16. We both were diagnosed with PCOS. We both had infertility issues. I had this advantage of being 5 years younger than her. So she always got to tell me what to do, go to this doctor, get this test, start fertility treatments right when you want to have kids. So very lucky. And so she starts hitting menopause and starts talking to me about it. I was blown away. I mean, absolutely blown away that this was something I knew nothing about. I started looking around. There was no resources available. I started talking to my friends, all of which, we're all hitting our late 40s. All my friends are educated, super senior in their careers. I started, testing words on them. Like I was like, do you know there's something called vaginal atrophy that's coming our way? Or do you, all these kind of things, like I had never heard these words. And to learn, I had the advantage of sort of learning about this in advance. And it really got me thinking. My sister's a journalist. She's incredible woman, Catherine Lake Waslander. And she started writing about the effect of menopause on the workplace. Wow. And for me, I started thinking about, I've spent my whole career in more male-dominated kind of industries. So I came from engineering. I worked in business. I worked in tech. I spent so much of my career helping to elevate women, making sure we have, I'm hiring properly, or equal pay, equal promotion, mentoring, the whole deal. And nobody told me that in my 50s, we would hit this universal health issue that no one talks about, that there's very little treatment out there. There's very little research. But by the way, all that work you've done on your career, you're going to hit this, I don't want to say a wall. It's not a wall by any means, but you were going to hit this health issue that nobody's told you about. Oh, and by the way, nobody in the workplace talks about.
Right.
And that's going to impact your career because you cannot be at your best if you're not feeling your best. And whether that's dealing with menstrual flooding, whether that's dealing with insomnia, whether that's mood, pain, whatever it is, how can you compete in that world? So this sort of sparked this. I was like, I have to help get into this space. So I started again talking to everyone I could, testing out all the various terms that I was hearing, reading, listening, and was trying to figure out how I could contribute. I know how to build businesses. I could scale businesses. I've done a lot of consumer products, and I was super lucky to be connected with my now co-founder, Anna Schiff, who was a co-founder and COO of Dialogue, which is a virtual health platform serving employers as a sort of a virtual walk-in clinic when you don't have family medicine support. And so she was able to bring the sort of medical side, the how do we build a health platform side, and I'm bringing the how to scale a product, consumer product. And so it was sort of a long dating process that we went through, and we're super excited to be building what we're building, and really focused on helping women. But it's it was a many year journey to get here.
Yeah, and I want to go into what it is exactly that you're building and the kind of support that you're building. But before we get there, you just talked about something there, which is this idea that, as women, we're in our 40s, and at this point we are reaching kind of like the pinnacle of our career. Like everything that we have invested and worked for, it's like finally coming to fruition. And then
Exactly.
It's like this thing comes out of left field and kind of like feels like it a little bit takes the wind out of your sails, or takes your feet out from underneath you, depending upon, what your experience is. And I know from my own journey and how that impacted my corporate career that it can feel like your career is kind of gone forever. Like you're never going to be able to recover it. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to imagine just being able to tolerate what it is that you need to tolerate. And like in my case, for example, like I just literally stopped sleeping, like completely stopped sleeping. And it was this kind of like very weird going through like sort of a fog, but not feeling tired, but yet being overly emotional to everything. I can't even tell you how many times I was in the bathroom at work crying over things decisions that would have been easy thing to do. Right. At earlier in my career. And now all of a sudden I'm questioning I'm turning it in on myself, really. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with me? Like,
of course. Right? Because that's what women always do. Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of women out there who, well, all of us do it because we've been taught to do that. Right.
Yeah.
But like, how do we navigate that bumpy thing when we feel like, like I said, the wind's been taken out of our sails?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. One is know that there is care out there. Yeah. And I think this is something I probably would have a more challenge saying 10 years ago. There are solutions, and you don't have to feel like this. Right. And there's a variety of solutions as well, whether it's you want to, go the medicine route, you want to go the more, holistic route. There's a lot of help and support now that's building. And so know that it's normal what you're going through. And there is support. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is joining the conversation, because the only way workplaces are going to start recognizing that this is such a significant, area that they need to invest in is if women talk about it. So things like, this podcast is wonderful. I know you've done a number of episodes on menopause, getting that conversation out there. For example, I was so stricken to find out about menopause, knowing that I'd been a senior as a woman who spent most of my career trying to promote women in the workplaces I work in, finding out that as a woman, I've had women in my 50s working for me and have been completely unaware of anything going on from this perspective. Right. Shock, like, to be honest, upsetting, because I start learning about this. My brain, of course, goes back to like, oh, that situation. Oh, this. Mind you, I've been very sensitive to women who've been pregnant, or women going through infertility or mental health issues, like all of these things that our generation has started being comfortable talking about. I was like, I'm such a great manager. I recognize and support women through all of that. Flexible leaves, flexible, all these sort of things that I felt like I was such a great manager because I did. Yet was, as someone who's like so forward, was completely unaware of what was happening to women really as early as their even late 30s, early 40s into their 50s.
Right.
And so I've sort of spent time going, oh my goodness, I was so unaware. And so much of it's not just a male manager problem. It's an everyone problem. And I think like getting over the taboo of talking about it is so important. And I think that's what's going to start making the changes.
Yeah. And I think to your point, the educational component of it is so important, because I know going into it, like menopause didn't even enter into my brain as like that's what was happening to me. Like it just
That's what it
wasn't talked
was.
about.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so when I go to my male boss at the time, and I can't even explain to him what's happening to me, like I can't, because I
Right.
don't know, right?
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
alone expect him to understand or be able to provide resources for me to help support me, right? Like we were all
Right.
kind of like feeling blindly through this thing, which I think is the importance of, Coral and what it is that you are building in order to create that
Yeah.
level of education so that we can at least begin to advocate for ourselves, even if maybe our
Yeah.
workplace is not as progressive as we would like it to be on this topic.
Exactly. And I think joining, we sort of say, it's going to take a movement. It's going to take all women together, and it's talking about it with each other. It's feeling open. It's bringing it out into the open. And I know that sounds hard when you yourself are in a position that's like you feel terrible and you're not sleeping, or you're feeling hot, or you're whatever. I've talk to women who have to deal with menstrual flooding at the workplace. And how do you handle, getting stuck in the bathroom with clothes that are covered in blood? This is the kind of thing that goes on. So it's hard when it's like you're thinking so much about your individual health. And I think it's just so critical at that moment to try to just like take that step and go, this is not the end of my career. This is something I'm going through, which is medical, and there are solutions and there are support.
Yeah.
And it's okay and it's normal. And I'm going to get through this, but I'm going to need a village to get me through this.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so important. And I think, even was talking to a friend last week, and it brought her to tears when I said, this is normal. Like what you're feeling is normal. And there's people that will listen, that are willing to help. And I think that's the part of it, is just making sure women don't go through this alone.
Yeah.
And while it can feel career defeating at the time, know that there is a path, and whatever path you choose. Some people do want to stop working at that point, or want to switch careers like you did.
Yeah.
Know that there are still paths for you forward.
Yeah. I mean, I remember one time giving a presentation to like senior executive from out of town, and standing up in a boardroom and having a hot flash. Well, okay, so when you're presenting anyway, your nervous system is a little bit worked up, right?
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
all of a sudden, this hot flash coming up my body that literally, it was like it shut down my brain, like mid-sentence. And I was standing there going like, okay, what's happening? Like, I don't even know what I was saying, you know what I mean? And then, eventually being able to recover. But I just remember like the whole rest of my presentation, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what are they thinking about me right now? Like I literally it was just like a short circuit happened, and like my brain shut down for a few seconds and then came back online, like when somebody unplugs the internet kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
And just being like mortified, like being so mortified. And I think about that moment because I think all the time about, if I had known what was happening, I probably could have recovered from it faster.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even had words to describe it. I mean, I think that's what's hard, is there haven't even been words to describe the things that we're going through, except what we see in sort of popular media.
Yeah.
Right. And having that, it is normalizing that in the conversation.
Yeah, that is so true. So how did your like, how did you find, like, was there a personal experience that you had, like, on, in your own menopause journey that really you think kind of solidified the direction, that this new direction that you were going to take? Like, was there a moment in time where you're like, oh my God, yes, this is it? Or was it
That's a
just a
good
combination of
question.
things?
So I have to totally admit, I'm lucky because of this 5-year gap with my sister. I know I'm like a year away from the like heavy hitting
Okay.
piece, but I can tell you, it was probably 3 years ago. I really pride myself on very organized, and I remember lots of tiny details. Who's doing what? I've managed very large teams. I manage complex operations. And my first symptom was brain fog.
Mm,
And I found that scary because it hit right at my core.
yeah.
And I sort of laughed it off for a little bit because I was like, oh, maybe I'm not getting enough sleep or whatever it is. And then I started reading about it and realizing that it was a real thing. It wasn't going to be permanent. I think that was the biggest moment for me,
Right.
was thank you for someone telling me that this isn't permanent. But it really dropped my confidence. It really, really impacted my confidence for a period. And I didn't trust what was coming out of my mouth sometimes. And that was where I really thought about this, the education part of the experience, the whole body part of the experience.
Right.
Like, it's not just one thing. There's not one a miracle drug that's going to help. And knowing that it's got to be personalized because everyone's journey is going to be different. So then I started losing my hair, and that, like, things are creeping up. Like I said, I'm so lucky I have this like blueprint I get to follow. So I know I know what's coming, but it's just knowing that the journey is so different. And then the other thing too is this starting when, talking to my friends, and these are women I've known since university, high school,
Yeah.
even having these conversations and going, how have we not talked about this? And
Right.
they're like, oh, I didn't tell you. I almost got a divorce. I hated my husband so much, for example, or yeah, I stopped sleeping. I'm like, how did we not talk about this? And so I think it was combined with that going like, there's got to be a way to do this together, because this is often how women, they don't always like helping themselves, right? They like helping other
Yeah.
women. You hear that time and time when they're looking after their kids or their parents or their husbands or their partners or other women. And so that's where it sort of all came together on going like, we've worked together on so many things in this. Like, I love the Generation X because we worked on so many things together and so many taboos, like, again, like women's rights and equality and all these health advances. And it's like, we have to work together through this.
Yeah.
And I think it was that combined with me starting to sort of enter that phase that it all kind of came together, and knowing that the approach had to be personalized,
Mhm.
had to be longitudinal, like it's not a one thing, and had to be very, sort of an empathetic community kind of approach, like a team approach.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And that's one of the things I really love about Coral is that it does, like, the gamut of services offered is so broad, right? That it can be tailored to very, very specific situations. Because I
Yeah.
have friends who literally had not one symptom, and then there was me who felt like she was being hit in the head with a 2x4, right?
Right.
And then there's
Exactly. Yeah.
everything in between that. So being able to
Yeah.
customize the type of support that we need. And also, this is the other thing, right, is to step out of this. I find now we almost, it's almost like we've gone guardrail to guardrail, where we weren't talking about menopause at all. Now we're talking about menopause, like it's popping up on social media. There's a lot more conversation on it, but we're also picking sides on things, HRT versus no
Yeah.
HRT, like all of this, very divisive type of conversation that's happening. And I'm like, it's every time I see it, I'm like, but it's not an either or,
No.
right? It's a
No.
choice.
Yeah. The divisive conversation is driving me crazy right now. I feel it's very acute. 2025 has like been the year about a lot of
Right.
pointing fingers, and it drives me crazy because I feel like anyone talking about menopause in any sort of approach to it, it's a benefit to everyone, because the more we talk about it, the more money will go into research, the more care that'll be integrated into public and private systems. So that's a latest beef of mine, because I've seen a number of sort of finger pointing kind of approaches. And I think the answer to what's right for a woman belongs to that woman. And the best thing we can do for her is to educate.
Yeah.
And to get to the root cause of what's causing the issue. And so those are the two sort of big things we lean into. So with Coral, we start with a very comprehensive set of lab testing. So much more broad than you would get with a family physician. And because we want to understand, there may be other things that are going on. It could have to do with, you could have low iron or vitamin D levels, which lead to fatigue.
Right.
Your cortisol could be spiking at strange times of the day based on how you're exercising. Your glucose, your insulin levels could be off. Just because the way you're eating or drinking wine at night or whatever it is, and maybe you need a better understanding of that. We look at lipid profiles. We look at inflammation markers to really understand what's going on. More than just your estrogen level that's probably going like this.
Right.
We know your progesterone's going down. We know your testosterone's going down. Your estrogen's probably all over the place in perimenopause. And so it's beyond those sex hormones. It's understanding the root cause and giving that information to the woman so she understands why she might be feeling certain ways on top of going through menopause. And so it's like give her the information and then help her make that decision with a really broad set of information. Because for some women, it might be, hey, I'm actually realizing that my cortisol after I exercise, it's like spiking and it's not coming down. Maybe I need to exercise in a different way. Whereas another woman might be like, no, it's my vasomotor. My hormones, let's look at the hormone levels and let's focus on that. And that may be right for her. And it may be very different for another individual who wants to take, a non-medicinal, more lifestyle approach. So that's the other piece that we do is we offer the full breadth of solutions. So our doctor, who's absolutely wonderful, who's trained in lifestyle medicine, recognizes that sometimes the right thing is a prescription for a medication, hormone replacement therapy, menopause hormone therapy. But sometimes the prescription is, hey, you should walk 10,000 steps a day. Right. Or let's look at your nutrition level. Or maybe let's give you a glucose monitor just to understand how you're processing your sugars through the day.
Right.
And she's incredible from that approach because she's all about providing the information and letting the women make their own decisions, obviously with help, of course, but with the right knowledge. And so that they can get out of this debate that we see in the media a lot and focus on themselves and what's right for them at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this debate is really, it's distracting at the least, but at the worst, it's paralyzing because it's, you can feel, you can be made to feel wrong doing what you think is the right thing for you. Right. And I think it just creates more stigma for women that we just don't need right now. We got a lot going on.
Absolutely. We should not be criticizing each other how we're dealing with this journey.
Right.
And because even as an individual, you may find something might be right for you for a period of time. And then it's not right for you and you want to try something else, but maybe you felt guilty because you were saying that this was good or this was bad. And it's, we have to stick together. And I think anyone talking about menopause and options that are out there, is the right thing. I do wish there was much more money in medical research that would actually help a lot of these debates, to be honest. And that's slowly increasing. But until there are a lot of different solutions out there. We look quite broadly at our everything we do is evidence-based. always rooted in evidence based, but it could be still an alternative. It might be a supplement.
Right.
There's research around that. It could be, like I said, activity levels, glucose levels. It could be hormone replacement therapy, bioidentical. Could be, whatever it is. We are evidence informed in everything that we're doing,
Right.
but trying to take the broad spectrum and staying neutral, and not there should be no guilt attached to anything a woman chooses.
I know, right?
Ever. And we're just so used to laying guilt on ourselves, and we have to get out of it.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, we are already hard enough on ourselves, let alone having to,
Huh.
feel guilty for any choice that we make for our own menopause journey. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people, because now I talk about it with everyone. I mean, I have teenage sons, and now they are the most educated about menopause.
love it.
So now I ask everyone. I'm like, you don't have to tell me, but are you on hormone replacement therapy? What are you doing? I ask everyone, and I still see women with this almost guilty look on their face, like they feel like, I don't know, like they've done something wrong. They're taking it, which should not, if it's making them thrive, is making them feel better, is helping them sleep, like do what needs to be done, and know that there is that kind of support out there. And to the extent you want to do something else, there's support for that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard you say, I think it was on a social media post or something, about when women thrive, the world thrives. Right. And this, like, when I read that, I'm like, it just struck me as so true, because we've
Yes.
seen it about, when women led businesses, are successful, it impacts her family, it impacts her community, and the ripple effect is huge compared to male dominated, male led businesses. And so
Yeah.
this whole notion, which is why I love what you guys are doing with Coral, is about creating the platform so that women can thrive, so that they can go on to do these things that feel meaningful and purposeful for them and their lives.
Absolutely. Like, I think about how wise I've become. I like to say I've become wise in my 50 years. And to think that a medical issue would prevent me from doing anything with that. And it's crazy to think that that's what's been happening for
Right.
generations and generations, and no one's addressed it. And so we sometimes sort of sit around and almost joke. We're like, world peace, women. If women were all functioning in their 40s, 50s, and 60s at their highest level, imagine what they could do. And so sometimes it's like, I want to solve every issue in the world, of course. I'm trying to just solve women's health. But I love the ripple on effect that has the potential for, and what women can contribute. It's that sort of wise grandmother. They've seen everything. They've done everything. I think even about the workplace, like, I've seen every issue. I've seen every problem. There's very few things that surprise me anymore. And so I feel like I have so much to contribute. And I don't want something standing in my way.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine if men found that there was a health issue that stopped them from performing at 50. I mean,
Right.
you kidding? Yeah. Like, I shouldn't go on about, I don't want to criticize men. There's a lot of great supporters of menopause, but when you think about it, there's so little. The only thing that holds them back at this time, not the only thing, but erectile dysfunction is such a prominent thing. And there is so many solutions for that.
Right. So much research.
And so much awareness. And so much people talking about it. It's become normal. That's the one thing. And I think about, oh my goodness, if we solved all this for women. I mean, the average, when you speak to insurance companies, the average disability claimant overall in their portfolios is a 52-year-old female. And that has been like that since disability insurance existed. And just think about why
is
52 are all these women dropping out? I know why. You know why. The insurance companies now know why, but there's no box that's being ticked that's saying this is due to menopause. So you just think even solving a small thing like that, because these women, when they drop out of their workforce, they're not just dropping out of work, they're dropping out of their communities as well.
Yes.
And probably at home as well, not being, not participating.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing we can change. So we're trying to solve the world.
And there are real, like, financial impacts to that, because I read a study a couple years ago that said that women are 80% more likely to be impoverished in retirement than men. And when you look into okay, well, why is that? I mean, it starts very early in our career where we don't negotiate. We don't necessarily negotiate our salaries when we first start, right?
Right.
We get penalized
Yeah.
for the years that we take for childbearing, whether we stay home or don't stay home, our career, our income kind of flattens.
Both. Yep. Absolutely.
Right. And
Yeah.
then, we get like, what is it? I think they said, well, women's peak earnings are on average around age 42. Men's peak earnings are at age 52. And it makes you wonder, like 42, they're starting to enter that time frame where I'm like, yeah, this is where their feet get taken out. And then when you layer on top of that, like death, illness, divorce, which women generally take the financial brunt of,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You can see how this is happening. So when I think about like the work that you're doing and the work that I'm doing, this isn't just like, oh, this is a nice to have. This is giving women agency over their own lives.
Absolutely. Putting them in control and let them make the choice.
Yeah.
Some women will want to stop work at 50 once their kids have left the house. And some women say, I'm just starting. Like the number, like me, I'm started a new business at 49. Was when I started my new business, and I got a decade at least in growing this company. And that's, whereas, and so giving women that choice. So 15%, the stats vary from different places, somewhere between 10 and 20. We see 15% of women do drop out of the workforce completely in their 50s due to symptoms related to menopause or other issues with aging. And an additional 20 to 30% miss work. 60% say their work is impacted by menopause. I mean, it's crazy. And so we use the word empowerment a lot, and it's like having control over your own health and your wellness as you age is so empowering. And so, but you've got to deliver it in a way that women feel comfortable with the choices that they're making about their bodies.
Yeah.
And so that they feel empowered in those decisions, and it will carry on into the rest of their sort of day-to-day life for sure.
Yeah. Because I mean, the people listening to this podcast have heard me say this ad nauseum. They're probably sick of it by now, but this idea that we are in fact stepping into the most powerful chapter of our lives yet, right? And there's this bump in the road called menopause, right? And we just have to figure out how to navigate that hump, which is exactly what you guys are delivering with Coral, right? Because on the other side of it, we are smarter, stronger, more resilient. We have life experience, we have knowledge, we have wisdom. And when we can take all of that and start, pouring energy into the things that are important to us, whether it's starting a business, a new career, I have women in my mastermind group who are like starting charities and things like that, right? A midlife woman armed with all of this on a mission is virtually unstoppable and will change the world. Absolutely. I believe this with my whole heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And what they need, the thing that they need to acknowledge along the way, and this is what we keep reminding women, is that it's a journey, and your health care is a journey, and you do need support. Obviously, I'm biased. I want you to get support from Coral, but in general, whatever it is, the way you get support, because you do need to change your habits. You do need to change your eating. You do need to change like what you're putting into your body, all of these things. And you need to figure out how you're going to sustain this. So this is one thing at Coral we're very focused on is, you get your assessment and your treatment plan. You see a nurse, you see a doctor if it's needed, but you get paired with a health coach that will help you sort of longitudinally change those habits, give you that support, give you that motivation. So I always want to tell women who are so used to doing everything themselves that life they're going to change in the 50s. And I agree 1,000% that that's the right time to do it. Remember to take care of yourself along the way and know that you are going to need that support again, however you get it. Maybe it's a group of friends that all work together and work out together, or maybe it's like a solution like a Coral with a health coach that can sort of raise flags when things aren't going well, but can be your cheerleader, your motivator, and your educator at as you age to make sure you're looking forward and aging as well as you can, so that you can do all those things that are suddenly opening up for you in your 50s and 60s.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I think about menopause as like a course correction, because along the way we've all picked up some really bad habits, some just ways of being that are probably not serving us. But then we hit this bump in the road where we physically, mentally, and emotionally, we just don't have the same bandwidth. And so we have to start making the course corrections, which are actually good, like you said, good long-term sustainable things that will help us age, well into our 80s. And so it is almost like the wake-up call, or the shaking the foundation a little bit to say, hey, this is not really serving you right now. We need to make a little adjustment over here so that you can keep going.
And some things are hard. Like, I can tell you what I'm trying to work on is strength training, which is hard to suddenly start at this age. But this is my team at Coral keeps reminding me, it's you absolutely need the risk of osteoporosis for women is so high, and you need the strong muscles to sort of hold those bones together. You need to repair. I mean, your muscle growth gets impacted by the lack of estrogen. There's so many things that go on. It's so important. And I get checked in on often to make sure that I'm doing it. I have to say it's a very hard habit. I'm used to doing. I'm like a cardio person. I always do cardio, but that's the kind of thing, unless I have someone checking in on me, and teaching me how to do it. Like, you can't, as a 50-year-old woman, you can't just walk into a Good Life and start lifting weights, right? Like, I've thrown my back out twice, I can tell you that. Just because I didn't have, like, I hadn't strengthened my core before I started lifting things. It never occurred to me. I wasn't even lifting heavy things. And so it's really like making sure that you're seeking out, this sort of support that can help you along the way and teach you these new things that might be very different than what you've done in the past.
Yeah. I mean, for me, strength training is easy because it's something I've done forever. In fact, there was a period of time where I had to back off from it because cortisol-wise, I was not serving myself. But
interesting.
For me, I think the biggest learning on this journey has been to slow down, right? Stress management techniques, like that's been the thing for me, where I'm like, it's easy for me to like go 1,000 miles a minute, right? And then, that's why I got burnt out. But like really making those stress management habits part of my daily life has been the challenge. Like, meditation or yoga nidra, or just, taking breaks in the afternoon, right? It's really caused me to rethink my definition of productivity, for sure.
Amazing. No, I love that you've sort of figured out, like, you've got your personal thing that you're working on. I've got my personal thing that's working on. And I think that's just such a great example of like these things that are new to us at this age. And while we do feel like we know everything, there's these things to learn. And we need the support to change our habits to be able to make them happen and sustain them.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately it's, about having a life that feels good to us, right? Like mentally, physically, emotionally, right? And, what is it that we need to do? Like, what are the course corrections that we need to make that happen? Because like I said, we've been able to sustain things that maybe were not the best things for us, but now we can't. And now it's like, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. You got to be like, okay, time to learn some new things, right?
Yeah, time to learn some new tricks. And it's again, it's back to this village. And it's so it's so tied in with your metabolic changes, your hormonal changes. It's all tied. And you need to be very aware of all of those pieces and know to take care of yourself in this journey. And we sort of talk about be forward looking, because we hear some women say, oh, I didn't have hot flashes, I'm fine. It's like, have you done a bone density scan?
Right.
Have you done a body composition? Have you looked at your risk for cardiovascular disease? You may be fine now, but if you've got all of these goals, make sure you're forward looking on those pieces, because there are things that you can correct on. This is the age, really, 40, 50, 60, to correct on those things before they become issues later. So that's a big part of the program as well. so that some women are coming in are very, I have an acute vasomotor problem I want to fix. Whereas other women, it's like, hey, I'm 60. I've got so much I want to do with my life. I want to make sure that I'm living healthily. What should I be fixing now? And so looking at that's what sort of that big baseline test we do up front is making sure that people can use that to really make sure that they are optimizing their own health that meets their goals, their needs.
I love that. Part of Coral's mission as well is tackling it from the employer standpoint as well too. Like, what is it like? What are like the number 1 and 2 things that employers can do to help support women who are going through this transition?
I think it's making programs accessible like this. I think in the past, people have assumed that the public healthcare system can support women through this journey. And I wish the answer was that they can. But has not historically been enough training and education in the family doctors in particular. Even OBs say the same thing. There's some excellent OBs in Ontario and Canada, but they'll even say the same thing. There's not enough training, and so I think employers, when they think about care that they offer their employees. Now everyone's offering, whether it's infertility treatments or whether it's mental health programs, and these are all wonderful. It leaves for parental care, or there's even pet care leaves now. My last company had those, and it's recognizing that the investment, $1 invested in your health for your women 35 and above, will get returned to you. It will flood back to you, in 10x. I'm only slightly exaggerating, but even if you lose one senior woman out of your workforce that you've spent a whole bunch of time developing, and you lose her because she hits this health wall, the financial impact of the company is huge. So we are, speaking with a number of employers, and a lot of it is them educating them so that they understand about this health issue and that they can help. So whether it's adjusting their insurance program or whether it's paying for these kind of programs directly, because it's not women's instinct to spend money on themselves for health, because they're so busy spending money, their kids and their partners and their parents. And so I think that's the number 1 piece, is recognizing the issue and putting some dollars that will, like I said, be returned to you in spades.
Yeah.
And then the second piece is just normalizing the conversation. Yeah. Just like a lot of other workplace issues, like mental health is normalized, all these things, which I think is wonderful. The strides we've made there are amazing, is being comfortable talking about that. So it's having your senior managers, and again, not just the men, the women as well, learning about it, understanding what happens, recognizing when there's issues. I think that paired with some real support would be huge.
Yeah. I think even just understanding it, like from the education component of like, this isn't just a physical thing, like it's a mental and emotional thing too. It like literally impacts everything that's happening. And so being able to identify, my high performing employee now seems to be struggling a little bit. She seems to be around that age. Like maybe this is part of it, right? Like maybe she's going through a lifestyle change, like a divorce, kids leaving home, like things like that, right? There's so much.
All of those things deserve to be recognized by an employer, though, and supported, right? Because your wellness of your employees, like, it's just a simple math equation in terms of the return you get. That we see that over and over again.
Yeah.
Not just in their productivity, but their happiness, their retention in the company, their promotion of the company. I mean, everything, it comes back. And so I think recognizing all of the issues that happen, in someone's life outside of the 9 to 5 is part of it as well. And at this age, I mean, as aging parents and divorces and kids, trying to fly out of the coop or getting them to fly out. It's all stress. And I think it's bringing awareness to all of that on top of understanding the health issues that women face at this age is just so beneficial.
Yeah.
I think there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go. I'm happy though to hear of some conversations. Menopause Foundation of Canada is doing wonderful things in this regard to promote menopause friendly workplaces. There's a lot of organizations that are working on education, which is such a huge first step.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, I go back to my own experience. So 49 in the middle of a divorce, which was crushing. And I remember I told not a single solitary soul in my office because I didn't want them to see me as less capable. And I remember thinking back, like, how sad that was, right?
Yeah.
That I thought divulging that, like, really life-changing part of my life was going to be used against me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I know. And it's, if you want employees to bring their whole self to work and be all in, you have to take their whole self, right? You have to embrace their whole self. And there's going to be things that happen. And so I've been managing people my whole career. I feel like that's something I've been good at. Like I said, accept the blind spot on the menopause. And really, when you support someone with everything that's going on in their life, there's only upside from it. I've never, like it, time and time again, there's upside, there's gratitude, there's just the feeling of them feeling supportive. It just makes for such a better workplace. And even I work virtually, and I think this stuff is even more important because sometimes people don't talk as much about the things that are going on. So actually make a point in meetings to make sure I hear what's going on in someone's life outside of just, ABC deliverable. Because it makes my day better knowing that I am working with the whole person and I understand the whole person. So super important.
Yeah.
It's like my number one leadership. We talked about leadership at the beginning of this, but one of my number one leadership things is taking and accepting the whole person that's on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what is the long-term vision for Coral? What is your greatest hope for what Coral becomes or does in the world?
Yeah, well, apart from, solving world peace, I sort of say bluntly, like, I want women to feel better. I want this whole generation of women to have a step function change in their health. And I don't think that's out of reach at all. It sounds very, sometimes it sounds so ambitious, but I actually don't think it's out of reach. And how do we make a generational change in women's health that will then have, trickle effects right across, whether it's the economy or the family or social systems? I think it'll have a huge impact. From a tactical perspective, we hope to be across Canada by the end of the year. Right now, we're just in Ontario and Quebec. I would also love to support women in their health journey for a longer period than just we sort of focus on 45 to 65, although we have women as young as 30 and as old as late 70s also looking for support with their health. Nice. And so we'd love to be sort of on that journey longer with women, to not replace what the support that they're getting in the medical system, but it's really to add on and fill in gaps where they're not getting the support that they need.
Right. I love that. Like, I think about my mission all the time about, midlife women seeing themselves as more powerful than they've ever been. Like, underneath it all, if we can recognize that, like, we're entering this, like, what the chapter that we're entering now is like a true gift. And I think, absolutely, you and your story are such a beautiful example of what it looks like to kind of find that sense of purpose, in this chapter, like take it from a challenge to a mission. Because the one thing I will say is that, all of the women that I have the pleasure of coaching or who are in my mastermind group, when these women come to the table wanting a change or a shift in their career or their lifestyle, they're doing it because they see a need for something better. They're solving a problem. They're not doing it just because they want more money. I mean, yes, everybody deserves to get paid very well for what they do, but there's something bigger pulling them forward. And that's where I keep coming back. It gives me goosebumps every time I say it, where midlife women will literally change the world because they are so mission and purpose driven. So I think your
Yeah,
story is such a beautiful example.
absolutely. Yeah, for me, it's like, and I know, and I think we've talked before, and I said this, like every day I wake up and I'm so excited to be working in what I'm working. And not to say my past career I haven't enjoyed. I've loved the other businesses I've run, but it's very different.
Right.
And it's been a pleasure to be able to go, like, I can choose what I want to work on now, and I'm going to work on something that's going to make a difference.
Yes.
It's amazing. Like, I talk about it with everyone who listen, because I'm so excited what we're doing. It's so refreshing. And I think women in their 50s sort of have this permission to say, I've put in the time, I've done the hours, I've learned, and now I'm really going to do something that I love and it's going to have an impact. And I love it. Like, I love hearing those stories.
Me too. Well, thank you for this conversation, and thank you for creating Coral in this world. It is so needed. We'll make sure that all of the links to Coral's social media, website, and everything are in the show notes. So to anybody
listening. And I think we included a discount. We'll include a discount code as well.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
For anyone who wants to give Coral a try.
Yeah. So to anybody listening, go check out the Coral website, at least even from an education standpoint. It's amazing if you don't live in Ontario or Quebec right now, but stay tuned for it to come across Canada, because having this very comprehensive and varied support system where you can just it can be tailored specifically to you and what your issue is. I just think is so needed, because we are all so different and our experience is so different. Yeah. So thank you for what you do in the world. Thank you for creating Coral and joining me on this mission.
Thank you for, I was going to say, thank you for helping with this conversation about menopause. It's so important, and midlife women's health, it's so important. So thank you for driving so much of that conversation through your podcast.
My absolute pleasure. So to those of you listening, I hope you liked what you heard today. And if you did, it would be great if you could give us a rating or review on this episode, or even better yet, pass this episode along to a friend, a sister, or somebody that you think might get something out of it. So until next time, thanks for listening to the Old Chicks No Shit podcast. If you like what you heard, the greatest compliment you could give us would be to comment below and subscribe. Or better yet, you could share this episode with a friend, a relative, or somebody you think could get something out of it. And remember, midlife is not the beginning of the end. It's simply the beginning of your kick-ass next chapter.